Well, all right then. So, moving on. Oh my god.
The podcast that floats down here.
Hi, I'm Melissa, your Stephen King veteran.
Hi, I'm Ben, the Stephen King and horror film fanboy.
And hello, I'm Luke, your first-time Stephen King reader.
Well, hello and welcome to the podcast that floats down here. I'm your host for tonight, Melissa, and we are here discussing Stephen King's Cujo. This book was published on September 8th of 1981. It was 309 pages long. The dedication of this book says, "This book is for my brother David, who held my hand crossing West Broad Street and who taught me how to make sky hooks out of old coat hangers. The trick was so damned good I just never stopped. I love you, David." Joining me tonight is a wide panel of highly intelligent beings. As always, I am joined by Luke. Luke, hello. How are you?
Hey, doing well. I'm excited to be here. I just lost all your pictures. Where's the button? There's the button.
And for those of you who can and can't see Luke, he's wearing an Oxford comma shirt, which is highly intelligent, like I said. Also joining us tonight is Ben, co-host Ben. Ben, how are you doing?
I'm okay. How's everybody else?
We are here in our own home.
Yes, we are.
Separately.
Yes, we are. Drinks up.
Also here is Abby, who's been joining us for almost all of our monthly book club sessions. Hi, Ab.
Hello.
How's life on the coast?
Oh, it's good. It's, in a house like the rest of America. It's not much different.
Welcome home. Joining us for the first time on the podcast that floats down here, but you know him and love him from the podcast that drinks and knows things. Glenn, welcome.
Welcome. Hey, how we doing? You probably also know me from the podcast that rolls, plays, and games.
That's absolutely true.
Damn straight.
That is true.
Which I will
Glenn,
say is likely to start getting more playtime here soon.
Seeing as how that one of the biggest things from that is being home. I feel like you've got some time.
Make it a real social
else?
push.
I saw a thing tonight that said gamers are like, this is their time to shine.
Yeah,
right?
your mother used to say, "You're gonna ruin your life. What good is gaming ever gonna do for you?" Streamers and gamers alike right now. Fuck you, mom. And I love my mom. Not saying that to her, just saying
In general.
In general,
Every mom.
That's what you say to your mom.
That's
I hope not. All three of us are not social quarantining anymore to come get you. I do have a confession. I stayed up all last night playing a video game. It's the first time I've ever done that.
What game? Animal
I
Crossing?
don't want to say.
Minecraft.
Farm Simulator.
Pac-Man.
Farm Simulator.
That's like
My
Goat
farm
Simulator.
is on point, okay?
I love it. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Is that game, Abby? Does it like kind of teach you stuff, or is it just kind of like a simulation to where you just kind of run a
I mean,
tractor
it
and
doesn't
stuff like
teach
that?
you anything. You just got to figure out what the hell a fodder is and what kind of header you need for different crops that apparently you can plant but can't freaking harvest. And then it's 4 hours in and you're like, oh, I had to get the corn cobber for the
It's a whole season
sunflowers.
lost.
You failed.
Oh, okay.
You have to-
I just blew $2 million.
you have to wait 2 months.
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you,
It's rough.
the word fodder means something a lot different in this podcast terminology for
Right.
floats down here. Stephen King.
Hello, Mudda.
Oh,
Hello,
God,
Fada?
here we go again.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so I'm going to pull us back to Cujo, who's a really good dog. In fact, that's kind of what the back cover synopsis says. So I'm going to give it to us here. It says, Cujo's a nice dog. He just happens to live in Castle Rock, where bad things happen, if you know what I mean. And I think you do. Bats are nasty flying rodents. Bats that live in caves in Castle Rock are apt to be rabid bats. The Trentons' husband Vic, wife Donna, son Tad are nice people. They just happen to have moved to Castle Rock, where bad things happen. What happens to Cujo and those unlucky enough to be near him, you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. The bats are flying.
It's
And with that, we're going to jump into our open 3 big thoughts discussion. This is where everybody has 3 or less big thoughts to go ahead and start us off. And Abby, I've got to go to you with your very first thought you have written here, just because I love proving Luke wrong. So,
Well, the panel we have here is really funny because I feel like the do nothing option is always on the table, correct?
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah,
It's always an
absolutely.
option.
It's never an option. Don't take that option. Like, it just drives me so crazy while I was listening to it. And she's like, oh, I could go do this. And I get, she talked herself out of it. You did nothing until it was too late. Like, I don't know. It's okay. It was a do nothing option for sure.
So Abby,
Don't know
I
if
take it.
agree. Benji, go for it.
Well, you're talking about the final scene.
the entire trapped in the car.
That's
the
what I'm talking
last
about.
half of
Yeah.
the book.
Nothing.
I'm aware. I'm trying to inform like our viewers and our listeners of what
where I just jumped to? Sorry.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and yeah, no, not a problem. And you're not wrong. I
Hold on. I'm sorry.
entirely
What?
I can just
I-
jump off this now. I mean, like, I'm good. This has been a good night.
I entirely agree with you. I get the play that King is trying to make here with the mother being, in a scared situation, everything, but it's still, you have to try something, because you and your son are literally dying in this car.
Sitting
And this is
ducks.
Donna that we're talking about with
Yes.
Dad in the car.
Donna and Tad. Yeah, who sat in a car for 3 days.
Right. You need to create some kind of
Two
tension.
days. 2 days. Fine.
Throw the dog a
Seizure.
bone.
I
Like-
wish they could. I think they were hoping they
You
could
got
throw
to
him a
find
bone.
something in the car.
They spent 2 nights in the car. They,
Like,
they were in that car for
Here's the other
3 separate
thing.
days.
Not once does it mention, like, if I was stuck in a car because of a dog, which I'm sure is very terrifying. Let's not downplay the fact that they were in grave danger. However, like, you didn't try to get into your trunk. You're driving a Pinto. You tell me you don't have a toolbox in the back of that piece of junk for every time it breaks down? There's not a screwdriver, a wrench,
What about
nothing?
that lighter thing that you could press in and then
Yeah, that hurts.
Do you know
Well,
what
speaking-
else she had in the car? Something else she had in the car. Because at the very end, after Tad had died, right, and he was out, and Vic went to the car and pulled out a giant blanket to cover Tad's body with. Maybe you get the blanket. Maybe
Where-
you throw it over the dog to distract. At least
Toro
something.
him.
Yeah,
know?
we're like,
Strangle him. I don't
what
know.
is those? I can't think of what they're called.
Tuck 'em in.
Garrote. Like
A garage, yeah.
a garrote. Like her shirt is torn. She's not wearing it. I get that you're probably not like, I wouldn't know how to make a garrote, but you like do something to try to gain some type of upper hand if he does come at you. Like, and I just feel like she was like, just talked herself out the whole time until it was absolutely too late. And then we decided to do something.
So I'm going to
what-
go ahead and kind of disagree with you to a
That's
to
okay.
a point.
That-
I mean,
Agree.
you're definitely not entirely wrong. There's definitely points where she does nothing, right? But she actively chooses to do nothing because she knows she has no chance against this 200-pound, incredibly strong, incredibly violent dog who she doesn't know this, but literally who just killed 2 grown-ass men the night before. Like, she has no idea. And guess what? It would be even worse for her if she tries to go for it. I mean, it ends up being the same thing of Tad dying in the car. Spoiler, since we're jumping to the very end of the book. Tad dies in the car from heat stroke and dehydration, but it's just kind
And a
of
lack
like...
of effort.
I don't know if it's
No,
lack of
just
effort.
kidding.
Every time
I'm just
she
kidding.
considers it, she knows that it's like it's completely futile
It's
for her to
futile.
even try.
It's kind of a
Because she's
catch-22,
going
right?
yeah, it really is a catch-22 because if she tries and the door's locked, she's fucked. If she tries and the dog is right in front of the car, which it turned out to be the time she made it, she did go.
Yeah.
That's like the worst thing possible. She doesn't know where it's going when it's in the shade of the barn. I mean, I'm not going to overly defend every single thing that she did, but she's also
basically,
suffering
she's
from
Schrodinger's cat.
dehydration too.
She's both dead and alive until she gets out of the car.
Or, I mean, there's still a chance that somebody else is going to show up, which is what she's playing on. She's hoping that the mailman will come in. She's hoping that somebody will stop by and do any. Those are all the things that she's constantly thinking about. The phone ringing, like, oh, they're not going to answer the phone, so someone's going to come up and check on them. I mean, she's actively thinking there is a chance if I do nothing.
I did like
I have
her
no chance if I try
SOS
something. Yeah.
horn honking. I thought that, I mean, that's ingenious. That's a good idea. It's a common
And
thing.
if the close neighbor hadn't already been dead, it would
Yeah.
have worked.
Yeah,
and
right.
like
Wake up.
even today's
Goddamn.
society where, you know,
Wake up,
Morse code
80-year-old
is
bitch.
very obsolete. I think if you heard that repeatedly, you'd be like, wait, I think that's it would get your attention.
The option I really wish she would have chosen was to have installed Flintstone panels in the Pinto ahead of time so that she could just walk the car out, you know?
That could have
Well,
been
I don't know if they came
problematic.
out with that model.
going
Oh,
to the
that was later. Yeah.
Going to the Pinto, I have to say, King failed the Chekhov gun because not Tad. What's the husband?
Vic.
Vic.
Vic. Vic mentions to his
Vicky.
partner. Oh yeah, she's driving. I remember with all those Pintos and their bumpers that are like made of flint or that are struck just wrong, the engines will blow. King mentions it. She's driving a goddamn Pinto. Why not have the dog run headfirst into that flint bumper and just blow it all up? I would have loved to seen that part. You know, that would have been a happy ending for me. All 3 of them just gone.
The Ford Flinto.
Exactly.
That's
I'm going
funny.
to take off something that you guys have touched on, the idea of Donna waiting for something, right? Like they're going to come home. They're going to answer their phone.
The mailman. That's
Somebody's
genius.
going to notice they're not here. Somebody's going to come feed the dog. The mailman's got to come. It's not so much that she's wrong. It's the comedy of errors. And I use that term loosely because it's not really funny, but the comedy of errors that occurs, all of the stars aligning to keep people away because like the Chalmers are never gone. Right? The family, Cujo's family never, ever leaves. They never go. You know, I don't even remember the mom's name, but she hadn't visited her sister in 12 years or something like that. She just happens to be gone now.
Yeah.
And the husband just happens to go here and he happens to remember to cancel the mail. And Vic just happens to be at like every little thing, every chance she had, something completely unrelated kept it from really happening.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. That
Exactly.
was pretty blatant where everything that specifically could go wrong to make this even worse literally did go wrong. Completely out of her control.
I think I'm going to throw a stunner out here to all our listeners. I think I just really dislike her as a person and as a mom.
So, do you think I want to ask a question, and do you think a lot of that is colored by the fact that we're introduced to her as an adulterer? Do you think
No.
that colors your perception?
I couldn't. That sounds so bad. I couldn't care less. That's not my issue with her at all. My issue with her is like she seems so unable to take care of her own self, or she's questioning constantly. Oh, I should tell him no, but I won't. Then tell him no, or don't. Like, and I'm not saying like giving into your. I give into my kids all the time because I'd rather. I'm like, yeah, you can come, or no, you can't, or whatever. Like she's just so unsure of herself that it drives me insane because then like she's constantly talking herself out of solutions or out of some action, and I just don't like the do nothing.
I kind of agree with you. Like when she was telling Vic about why she had the affair, not the affair itself, but the reason is because she didn't want to go to Tupperware parties and didn't want to be getting old and didn't want to be seen as a typical housewife. I'm like, but get a job. I don't know what to tell you. Like do something for yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Be somebody. Don't just be a wet dish rag sitting there flopping in the wind. Oh, that my life is doing this to me. Nothing's happening to you. You're choosing to let these things happen to you.
Well, and like her response to it all the time is like, woe's me, or, oh, this is unfortunate. I don't know how to fix the car. I don't know. Then learn. Get a book. Like, you can do
Make a phone call.
Google it. Jesus Christ.
That's why I said, get a book.
I know.
But, like, I'm all for being compassionate to somebody who's living through a difficult situation. But when I'm constantly, and I see in this book like a lot of her point of view, or what I'm assuming is like her speech, she's not actively trying to change any of this. She's just waiting for Vic to fix the car. She's just like, I'm sorry, if my car is, but that's her car. Fine, you're not going to get it done. I'll get it done. Like, I've been telling you my spiel.
The reason he didn't get it done is because she bombarded him, or he found out about her like affair. So I
from
get
Steve.
It. Right. No, Steve. But still.
Damn it, Steve.
I just had a friend.
Steve.
I just think like, yeah, go take care of it.
Yeah.
He would have, but he can't at the moment because he has a job, which is in jeopardy.
And he's pissed at you for a very like understandable reason. So guess what? You're gonna just kind of figure it out for yourself for a little while.
Or take the bus.
Or take the bus.
Or you know what? Stay home and save lives.
That's right.
Right. You know, I kind of liked Donna. I had to do it just to be that guy. No.
Just to be Benji. Okay.
I mean, I really didn't dislike her the same way you guys do. But
I didn't hate her. I felt nothing
about her. I don't care. I have no investment in her future. I like Tad until he's like stuck in a car, but I totally get why he's annoying because
he's a 4-year-old.
He was a tad annoying. He was a tad annoying.
Only.
I loved Tad all the way through, and I could tell that he was supposed to be an annoying, whiny-ish, needy kid, and I'm like, oh, like that's because your mom is doing this or your dad is doing this or whatever. It's not him. It's just a little boy being a little boy, and then he's scared, and it makes my heart break. I like Tad. He did not bother me at all.
I would say Tad is probably the best written little kid we've read yet. And I will say that even with
Georgie,
even better than Georgie. He was more fleshed out. He was more fleshed out. There was more interaction with Tad to have.
It took him a lot longer to die than Georgie did.
It did.
There you go.
Survivability goes a long way.
I will say Tad is probably the best written little kid. He's not like a super genius fucking, psychic, or I forget the one from or the 12-year-old who's, a goth whiz. He's a realistic 4 or 5-year-old, so I can appreciate that. Georgie was a realistic 4 to 5-year-old as well. He just wasn't as flushed out as Tad.
Agreed. He's very realistic in my opinion.
Yeah. I'm going to move on. Glenn, do you have any big thoughts? I don't know if you do or you don't. Do you have any big thoughts you'd like to share? I know you kind of asked to be here for Cujo.
I don't really have any big thoughts.
Or you were told.
I was kind of I didn't really read the book in the greater sense, or I kind of did like the summary, read a lot of stuff online and stuff like that. But some things I read, it was on Wikipedia where I guess Stephen King didn't actually remember writing this book because he was on a big like coke binge or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna get there, but yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
No,
Step
you're
on
fine. You're fine.
toes or anything.
you
You're fine.
you're allowed to own it. You said it first. You win.
Yeah, you got there.
And then I guess the other thing, or well, I'll come back to the other thing or whatever later. If somebody let other people have a chance, I guess.
Oh, it's just Luke, Benji.
Yeah, so in other news,
all right, Luke, you also have nothing written in your notes here. Is there anything that stuck out or anything you wanted to bring up?
Yeah. I mean, I had a lot of big overarching thoughts, so I didn't really want to write anything down to needle at anything. But I just overall thought the characters were pretty well written in a bit contrived situations, if that makes sense. Kind of like Melissa brought up. One of the big things I really noticed was literally everything is stacked up against the one thing that we want to happen once they get there. And it's, we want Tad to make it. That's kind of the character I think it's pretty easy to root for towards the end of the book. And the second half of the book, I should say. And it just seems like absolutely everything is going against that happening. And the people that are involved, I feel like, are doing what they can with what they can.
Which is nothing.
No, there's only one character that I think people would agree did maybe not enough, but Vic, who's out of town and just has the inkling in his stomach that something is wrong, and maybe he feels paranoid because of the news he just got that his wife was cheating on him. But the guy he's there with, his colleague, is like, you know what? You're better off feeling foolish and calling than not, and that really gets the ball rolling for
Roger.
that at least gets the ball rolling for the actual save that does happen. And even the police officer that showed up and
Bannerman.
The chief, right?
Yep.
And I feel like everyone reacts the right way. It's just a serious, unfortunate series of events that happens around this story that makes it feel slightly contrived, I think.
All right, Mr. Snicket. I kind of agree with you because if you even think about it, God, I don't remember their names. The neighbor and then the Cujo's owner.
Gary, was that Gary?
It wasn't Gary, but it was something close.
No.
So Joe and whatever, like when the first guy gets attacked by Cujo, he's like, I gotta go get my gun. He's doing that's what he should do. Go get it. And that's what Joe says too. Like, oh, I gotta go. Like everybody's got the right idea of how to deal with it. They just can't execute it because of the environment.
Yeah.
So, all right, Benj.
So for my first point on this, kind of like Glenn, I was going through reading a bunch of backstory stuff, and I got into some old Stephen King talks and everything. And he says a line during one of his talks, and he goes, "I went to the mechanic. He had this big ass 200-pound Saint Bernard. I said, 'Can I pet your dog?' I go, 'Yeah, sure.' I walk up, he just snarls, and then I wrote Cujo. And so that's how I got the inspiration. But here's the thing. I love Tad. I love Donna. I, loved all these characters. I don't remember writing them. And you know what? I realized just plot gets in the way of what's important. I like character building because I love to character build. But plot's just there. And it's like, this is the perfect example of what he means by that because there's very little plot, if at all. It's the course of 6 days. And I mean, yes, we've had short stories. Hell, we spent 4 months covering 3 days in it, or one night in it. I get it. But, there was nothing in this book that, to drive the plot forward. And I'm okay with it. I just didn't like it. And I'll get that right out of the way. Just did not enjoy this book whatsoever. Because exactly to Luke's point, the characters are contrived. The plot points that happen are contrived. And it's just not that interesting. Sorry.
Abby, I feel like you have a thought that went along with this. Sort of your last thought there. I know we were talking earlier. And I feel like it fits right in.
You're muted.
Let's keep it that
wait for it. Wait for it.
I killed the suspense for you.
I'm not exactly sure what the time hour stamp is on the audiobook. Anybody have that factoid? No. It's like 13 hours or something like that.
Somewhere around there.
Maybe,
Yeah.
Right around
so
14.
I feel like I listened for 13 hours. And I'm like, this is a Stephen King book. He's a good writer. I've enjoyed these in the past. I will continue to listen. I am 13 hours and 30 minutes in, and I am finally genuinely interested for the last maybe 45, if I want to be kind with my time assumption. It was literally like the last 45 minutes, so my ears perked up, and I'm like, ooh, okay, now what's going to happen? And then I looked down, it's like, you have 23 minutes left. Really? Like, it was a bit of a letdown, but that's okay.
I will say, so when I was choosing all of the books for 2020, what a great year that's been. When I was choosing all the books for 2020, I purposely chose books, not every book he's written in chronological order, but I wanted early works. So everything we're doing this year is within his first 20 years of writing. And I purposely picked short books because time constraints, right? It's a lot easier to read a book a month when they're 300 pages than when they're 1,000. So I picked the shortest ones. Those were my two criteria. There was no other options.
And it had to be available on Audible. That was the other one.
So it wasn't like, oh, these are Melissa's top 20 books. It's not like this is the one you have to read. It was, we're going to do just like a sampling of his shorter novels, not novellas or short stories. They're going to be early works. They have to be on Audible. Cujo fit all of those marks, but I had never read it. I had never had a desire to read it. I wanted nothing to do with it. It never struck my interest, but I got it on Audible and I read it. Well, I listened to it in my car on the way to work when we did that back in like November, December. And I was like on the edge of my seat. I'm like, I have to finish this book. I have to know if they make it out because it's Stephen King, right? Like when you're in it, you're like, I have no idea. They could all die. They could all make it out. The dog could live forever. Like he could come back as a ghost. We don't know. It's Stephen King. Once I finished it and I knew the ending, I spent days like devastated for Tad.
Mm-hmm.
Days. I read it again in the last 2 weeks while renovating my kitchen. And I kept having to remind myself, oh yeah, I have to finish that. I had no desire to read it again. I had no desire to listen to it again. I already know the suspense ending. And I like the character building. I have favorite characters. I even have a favorite storyline, but I don't really care about the book as a whole. So I'm kind of with you guys. Like, I needed to know the ending the first time, but I don't think I'll ever revisit this book again. That's just me.
I liked this book.
But that was going to be my question. So back when we read Salem's Lot, and Luke said, nothing happens in this book. This book is boring. Nothing happens. My initial thought was, I can't wait to see what Luke thinks about Cujo. Because literally nothing happened because she was just in a car, right? She chose a do nothing option most of the time. So Luke, what'd you think?
I just liked it. I mean, I thought like I said, the characters I thought they were pretty well developed, and the thing that sucks me into these stories pretty quick, we have a very similar thing to Georgie opening up for it, right? Georgie and Tad are pretty similar with the monsters in the closet type thing, and I mean, obviously this book was written 4 years before it was, somewhere around there, and at least the published dates. And you can see, again, it's almost like he's building some of these small boys, or maybe you just see the same things occurring in Georgie, and it's done so well that, I mean, I think we've definitely agreed that type of character, it's a home run every time that we've seen it, even if it's a psychic mumbo jumbo kid. Good character. And I don't know, I just feel like it's flushed out. There is not that much plot, and that's fine. I read so many books with so much plot in them. I'm okay with having this be a character analysis more than anything. And I think these are real people in mostly real situations. There's literally nothing at all that is magical or mystical at all. You could maybe make some justifications that there are some things, but some of it's very much open to interpretation. You could justify absolutely everything as it actually happens, and it's not even hallucinated to an extent. So there are doors there. I agree.
Can I jump in on that, Luke, really quick?
Yeah.
That goes to exactly kind of one of my point a little further down. I am glad that the monster in Tad's closet wasn't actually anything. I know Vic, assumed, oh, that was Cujo in there. But like originally, because we started off with the killing of the murderer or whoever.
Wasn't it that guy, though? That's what the book says.
No, I mean, we get no proof. They just see eyes. They get something in the closet. But
there's a line somewhere that says, I came back and I'm coming for you, Tad. And my name is Frank, right? Am I wrong?
It does, but again, it's a little
Frank
kid.
Wrong is his name. Not
Yeah,
Frank Wright.
so it's not like there's an actual supersonic demon, that's in the closet then that possesses Cujo or anything like that. No, I mean Cujo was just got rabies. He, went kind of nuts, and Vic kind of even have that feeling of in the closet. Or there was something there because he has this mind of Cujo now. Of it was Cujo in the closet. I'm glad that actually wasn't what it was. I liked that it was true to nature, kind of just everything. The only mystical thing we got was I think Vic might have the shine, just based off some of his visions and some of his dreams and stuff. I kind of got that feeling like that was King's kind of way of saying, oh yeah, he's seeing this happening, and he doesn't know how to interpret it, but he's seeing it and he's seeing what's actually happening. So I interpret it as he might have a little bit of the shine to him, and he just doesn't realize.
I could agree to that as an option for sure.
Really quick, speaking of Frank Dodd was one of the central characters in the book The Dead Zone, which came out 2 years before this. It was not one of the ones we're reading in this, but Frank Dodd, and I think that's even the first time we hit Castle Rock, possibly.
They would be related to Lannisters, all of them.
No, not Casterly.
I know.
Rock.
It's just that was an author, or what is it called? Like their freedom to write how they want. They don't have to follow punctuation or even saying the right place the
Artistic
right way.
justice.
There you go. Sure. Thanks, Luke. Always got my back, bro.
That's literally all I'm here for.
It's a good job.
Yeah.
You can do it from home.
I don't know. It's one of those, another one that I haven't read, but Bannerman is in that one. I think Frank Dodd is, unless he's in another one, but I know he's in stories of Stephen King prior to Cujo, which is why he's kind of this underlying tone.
Kind of like a frequent character of the town or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other thoughts before we jump to our questions?
I was just going to say, like with in regards to Cujo the dog, Saint Bernard, right? They're pretty big, intimidating, even without rabies. Now, has anybody ever encountered a rabid dog or rabid animal or anything like that?
I wouldn't say rabid, but
I have.
It's kind of a
I unconfirmed, but seemed pretty well.
Right, it's kind of a different ball game where they're just extremely aggressive, and you can kind of tell that that's kind of odd. It probably has rabies.
And there's a difference in aggression from a sick aggression to just an asshole dog. I've met plenty of asshole dogs who are just like, okay, you're just being an asshole. The sick aggressive, it's they're defending their. Cujo is perfectly written like from his mindset of I'm defending. They're the ones that hurt me. He just lost his mind.
Did anybody else listen to this when Cujo was talking and wish she talked like Doug from Up?
Yes.
Or any of them? Alpha?
Doug Funny.
Hey,
Skeeter.
Alpha 1! Yeah.
Yeah, I heard Cujo more a little like Doug, but a little slower.
I heard him like Alpha 1, whose voice keeps getting changed to the high-pitched girls. I don't know.
Glenn, did you finish your thought there about the rabid dog?
It was kind of like an open discussion point, I guess. But
okay.
Yeah, so I just have one other.
Even just an aggressive dog. I mean, there's definitely a distinction, like you made, but like the dog that used to live behind us was a very large Rottweiler that we know savaged a little dog that lives next to us. That dog's dead. And so is the Rottweiler now, kind of because of that. But there were a couple times where, I'd just be in the backyard close to the gate. You all know what gate I'm talking about. And it was right there, and this is a pretty big dog. If he wanted to jump across the fence, he could have, and he was putting his mean face on. And I was like, I'm just going to leave the gate almost closed to show that I don't want you to come in. I'm not going to go anywhere near it right now. But when he jumped into our yard often, and we'd play together, wouldn't be a big deal. But as soon as he was in his territory, all bets were off.
Yeah,
it was a totally different thing.
German Shepherds I had a neighbor who had a German Shepherd, and I remember, I think it was my sister or someone, like we used to hit like wiffle balls over the guy's fence, and he always said like, don't just come knock on the door, I'll go get the ball. So
a Hercules situation.
Right. Well, we went over to
the beast,
or he was like walking the dog, and we were like going over to, and then we said something to him, and I guess the dog took it the wrong way and like kind of lunged at us or whatever. Yeah, made his move or whatever, and we're like, oh shit.
Yeah. I do think that was another thing I really enjoyed about this book was getting inside Cujo's head. Those were some of my favorite perspective points of him even trying to justify, like, no, that's my buddy. That's Gary, who always gives me biscuits, but he's the one that made me sick. I'm probably going to kill him. And then he's like, no, okay. I'm a dog. I don't know. I just really loved that perspective. And I thought it was done pretty well to show that, like, losing of, loss of sanity over time, because we saw him interact with so many different people. And I don't know. I just thought that was pretty interesting.
I feel like I'm going to sound a little defensive here, and that's okay. I'm defensive. That's fine. But, yeah, right. But anyways.
Just don't bite my head.
Right? Or my face. But I feel like Cujo was written very well. Like, I wasn't like, oh my God, Donna, it's a effing dog. Like, get your shit together and go. I never felt like she was being over dramatic about the severity of the situation. Like, and I never seen a rabid dog. I don't ever want to. But just like the total loss of any type of, the word I would use would be humanity, but that would be wrong.
Cananity.
Yeah. Domestication is just completely ripped from him, and it's terrifying. I don't know. You have this like bigger than life dog, and your kid is, I don't mean to go back to this. I just felt like your adrenaline, like the mom lifts up the car, something like that. I think I don't like this book.
That's what she should have done. Lift up the car, throw the car. That's a dog.
Use the car as a weapon.
You win.
She should have fashioned a parachute out of the shirt she took off, and it would have been fine.
Make a robot out of the car.
Yes. But I think the reason that I had such a problem with this
robot v
book,
Cujo.
not problem, but like I'm hating on it so much is because, like Melissa said, I was so devastated by Tad's loss. Like, I'm mad that happened, and nobody stopped it. So now I don't like your book.
I'm going to take my ball. And I'm going home.
I'm not even going to give it to your stupid rabid dog. I'm not playing fetch.
They did earlier.
Not today.
Cujo! Here, Cujo!
Yep.
Oh, her voice was annoying when she said that. I'm sorry. I liked her for everything else, but...
See, that's one of the few I actually liked it for, because that stands out. Like, like I've seen the movie once years ago, and that line's in there, and it's a standout line.
Narrator.
No, I agree, but the way she did it resonated to me. I caught her name, but
I know it's like, I know it's something Daver. Lorna, I have it written down. It's like Lorna Daver or something like that.
All right.
Raver.
Adam,
Lorna Raver.
One more comment about parenting that I really would like to get to.
So, I think after reading a few of Stephen King's books, I'm still a very big noob. But I feel like Stephen King's biggest fear in life is he was either super traumatized by terrible parents or has a super huge fear of being a terrible parent, or like an adult that has the ability to change a situation and doesn't, or makes it worse. Like, this is a constant theme that I've seen throughout multiple books.
So
they have lots of different characters, and all the adults suck.
Yeah. And so to your point, again, on a lot of these interviews I was watching with him, he actually addresses all of that. They say, how do you come, like the one of the interviewers like, you just had like horrible childhood, right? And all this. He's like, no, my childhood was great. And you know what's scary? That's a fact. There's nothing wrong with me growing up. This is all in my head, and then the interviewer says, what's your biggest fear? And you nailed it right on the head. Losing my children, and so those two tie together of, just those two things that your first 2 points there that you brought up. It's just hilarious because he's answered those and exactly what you said. Like his experiences is fine. He had a normal life, normal everything except for the drugs and alcohol. But the fear of children, losing his children, that's a driving factor in him.
Can I just point out that when this book was published in 1981, he had an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 4-year-old.
And he doesn't remember it. There's probably a lot of guilt going on in there, whether he remembers it or not.
He had a 4-year-old.
Right.
Like,
that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And
so I think
sorry.
that's a lot of this one, The Shining. I just see a lot of the dad thing and the my little kids underlying tones in some of these. And I wonder if we're going to see it as we hit the ones he wrote 10 years later and 20 years later.
Yeah,
You know, like they talk about. Sorry, go ahead, Luke.
No, it's a really quick. I mean, the other thing we know about him is he's incredibly perceptive, and he has children. And if he sees how other children are being raised, or at least outcomes, and can make fantasize judgments on those families of how these things could happen, and just without context or anything, create his own context for a story character. I mean, that's an easy thing to have the imagination to drive something like that to create a character and, manufacture situations to get to a certain point, right? Kind of reverse engineer it.
Or even if his shortcomings were just very small ones, but then imagining or blowing those out of proportion.
Yeah,
like if this was my constant, if this was how I reacted every day to small situations, or if I was that complacent or that whatever.
And then you throw in little things like, hey, I met this big St. Bernard at this guy's mechanic shop. And hey, I heard so-and-so cheated on her husband. And hey, this thing happened where somebody's car broke down and they had to walk. And all of a sudden, because his brain is like the brilliant thing that it has, it meshes it all together. And
I'm pretty sure that's how Mom feels when I drive across the country by myself. So, I mean, how smart can he be? Because that's basically, the National Guard has been sent to drive me home before. I am 31 years old.
You're a grown-ass woman.
I'm a grown-ass woman, folks.
That's what I told Melissa when Mom was giving her grief about going to visit you. I was like, Melissa, you're a grown-ass woman. Why is this a problem?
That's right. I sure am.
It was really funny because both Mom and my husband were like, are you sure you can drive all the way to see Abby? And I was like, are you kidding me? So I said it to Luke and he said that. I'm like, you made me feel so much better.
Today.
Just because I'm 40 doesn't mean that I can't handle it. Pretty sure I'm an adult.
Just because you're 40 doesn't mean the National Guard isn't being sent to escort you either. Just know that.
That's true.
Sorry.
All right. Last big thoughts before we jump to my questions.
I just want to point out that I guess my first introduction to Cujo was back in the 90s. The St. Louis Blues had a goaltender named Curtis Joseph, and he used to have his mask I guess his nickname was Cujo as well, but he had the mask that had the dog on it. That was pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Had no idea it had anything to do with a book. That's for sure.
That's the Cujo that we grew up with.
Actually, he's not wrong. That's my first introduction to the name, and then it morphed to knowing what Cujo actually was.
As the book, yeah.
I am this many days old when I found that out. That's awesome.
That's a lot of days, Abby.
Not that many.
They'll still call the National Guard for you. Okay.
They're on their way.
Okay, so I'm going to jump into some of my questions.
The Guard's coming.
Book club question number 1, discussion question. I assume, and we just had this conversation, so Glenn, thank you for the awesome segue. Most of you have heard of the term Cujo and possibly heard of at least the story of Cujo before and knew that it was about a rabid dog or a dog that's attacking people. What part of the story most surprised you or stood out to you as different than just, dog attacks people stuck in a car story?
So I'll take this one first. Besides Curtis Joseph introduction to Cujo, my first real remembering of hearing about it, we heard about a rabid dog in Castle Rock in It that was actually mentioned during one of the news briefs. They talked about a rabid dog a couple years ago, and so because I never really knew the story. Like I said, I remember watching the movie, but this was years and years ago. I don't remember the movie at all, and so I was more surprised about the lack of attacks and the lack of just viciousness that actually there was compared to just everything that I've heard just going into it. I always thought, this dog, almost like Carrie wipes out an entire city kind of thing. That's what I was thinking of. And then we didn't get that. We got a character build for 306 out of 309 pages,
287.
Fine. Okay, 200. Yes. Fine. I'll give you that. But
I don't really know. I don't have the book. I just have the Audible.
Yeah, but that's what kind of threw me a bit because I was like waiting for it, and then even like the start of the book where Cujo was a sweet dog, it was like, okay, just the little things like that just kind of stood out to me.
I'm gonna probably just show my true colors here. I found out it was about a dog when I downloaded this book here, and I was like,
okay.
I guess there's a
Gotta
dog.
be about a dog.
I've never heard of Cujo, never seen a movie about Cujo, no idea.
So all of it surprised you?
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything specific. I mean, I had no idea what. I kind of agree with Benji that I thought there'd be more attacks. Like it'd be more on a rampage than out kind of on a farm. Like, you know, just out way out of town, isolated area, and it's just the people that end up there that get kind of pigeonholed in. And that, I guess that kind of surprised me. I figured it would be more of a, I don't know, it would probably handled a lot quicker. Anyone with a gun,
Right.
like problems over. So this is
The
one
guy
of the
with the
more
gun did show
dangerous-
up and nothing happened.
Well, yeah, but he was kind of a putz in his own way. He meant well.
Who, Bannerman?
Yeah, he meant really well. Just kind of, it was just one of the. He should have called for backup, right? I mean,
Yep.
And it
Should
was
report
just,
the car at least being there.
yeah,
As
made
AK
some
pointed
mistakes.
out.
Made some mistakes.
Glenn,
Yeah,
anything?
I guess that's probably the biggest thing that stood out is like you get like the cop that comes in and like they're supposed to be the heroes and stuff, and shout out to all the essential workers like cops, firefighters, grocery store workers right now with what's going on. But anyways, like this is supposed to be the knight in shining armor and he goes down, like then you just have to have that heart-sinking feeling like, okay, now we're fucked.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like this is everything you could dream of. The person that you hope showing up, and it's
They
just
shit
no
the bed.
dice.
I think that's where that book got me. I think that's why I'm so mad.
You gotta
Like,
get-
thank God they're all right, cool. Like, maybe something bad will happen on the car ride home, but Tad will be fine.
As long as
No.
the National Guard shows up, then you're good.
Yeah, and when I got to
To
that part in the
escort them.
audiobook, I specifically did not look at how much time I had left because I'm like, 'cause I wasn't paying attention to the time frame. And I'm like, I'm not going to look. I don't want to see how much time because if I had looked and seen, oh, I got an hour left or whatever, well, that cop's fucked. You know, it's like I wanted, you know, do they have a chance? Could this be the out? Could this be the way? Nope.
Question 2. Whose story? Now we've got Vic's story, we've got Donna and Tad's story, we've got Cujo's story, we have the Chalmers story of Charity and Brett, and then we have Joe and his best friend whose name you guys are saying Gary. I don't know if it's Gary. I can't
I
remember.
think it was Gary,
Gary Purvier. That's what it is.
the one that comes in
Reminds me
and
of
checks
the
on.
name from
Gare Bear.
Remember the Titans, the kid who got hit in the car, left side,
Aw.
strong side. Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah, I went to
is it their
the
story? Is it Vic and Roger and the sharp serial professor? Like, which part of the story were you most invested in learning about, if any?
I would
Nothing?
say
Nobody cares.
just based off the title of the book and the storyline, I would say Cujo.
I think it's a good storyline. I mean,
Yeah, he's the most he's the most interesting character to me. Honestly, yeah, hands down, Cujo is like he's the reason for the book, but he's the one you want to win. Like, and I don't mean like in the rabid sense of like killing everybody. You want me personally, I could care less about Tad. It's sad, sure. Cujo is the tragedy of this story.
Because he was a good dog.
who's a
He's a good boy.
Good job.
Who's a good boy?
I will say I did really enjoy Vic a lot. I agree with you. I think Cujo's good, but the stress that Vic is under and the way he maintains his sense of self and taking care of his family and taking care of his business and even going back to try and make sure they're okay, even after what he found out about his wife, that's a guy that I would like to know what happens to him next. Now I don't really care about Donna, but I'd like to know what happened to Vic.
See, now to that point, one person I want to know what happens to is Steve. Fucking Steve.
Steve Kemp.
That piece of shit. Not
He's a piece of
because I
shit.
like him, not because I enjoyed him. He's a piece of shit, but I want to know what happens. Like, what's his outcome? You know, we don't get that closure. We don't know. I mean, you would think, breaking and entering, vandalism. At least you get some
Drugs
jail
in his
time.
van.
Yeah, for the drugs, you probably go in prison.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I
Is
mean,
it
actually,
Shawshank?
no, breaking and entering, burglary, that's a felony.
You
So
go to
you'd probably go
Shawshank?
to prison. You'd hope, but he
What'd
seems
you
like the
say,
type that would
Sorry.
get. Oh,
It's a senior Shawshank.
I missed it.
that was a
He
senior
said,
Shawshank.
did he end up at Shawshank?
Yeah,
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 he
it's
might,
not far.
That's where he would go, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Shawshank's not far from Castle Rock.
All right.
Overall, I agree with you, Melissa. I did like Vic's story, and I liked the sharp cereal stuff too. I just thought it was interesting, and I'm glad like it worked out, right? I mean, they sold the deal at least to get the extension of the contract for 2 more years, and
Like, what are they going to do for the next 2 years? How are they going to keep their little fluffy small company afloat?
small
Like, I
town
want to know.
marketing.
I felt like it was very much like he was part of like Mad Men. Like that.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's
Yeah.
the agency he left. I had this whole thing in my head. So Vic probably would be for me too. I'm like, dude, this is just like Mad Men. I wonder if he knew Roger. That's cool. Like, I don't know.
I bet you it's the same Roger. Bet you it's the same
That's-
Roger.
And yep, that's what I wondered.
I just like
Like,
that, you know,
Is that why Roger's name is Roger in Mad Men later on?
his whole life was in turmoil, right? You know, and he just found out his wife literally was cheating on him, and like that sucks. But he doesn't let that take over absolutely everything. He takes it in stride and gives her the chance of, hey, we'll talk about it. We'll try to work through this. We'll figure it out. We've got some bigger fish to fry right now with this business stuff. Like, he doesn't let it completely derail him from providing for his family, which I think is the most important thing.
Or
And
from worrying about them when there's a concern.
right. I just thought he was probably the most real character, I would say, overall, aside from the dog. But
No, I do agree with you.
I thought it was
He
good.
reminds me a lot of the writer from Salem's Lot.
Yeah, that very similar kind of even keel mindset. would be the
Yeah.
best
Yeah, okay.
put it.
Yeah.
You know, but my one qualm with Vic, and this goes to Donna too, but more on Vic. You found out your wife cheated on you 2 days ago, on Friday, I believe it was. Maybe, yeah, I believe you found out on Friday. They had sex Sunday night, and that was specifically said. I'm sorry, probably there's like 99% chance that would ever happen 2 days later after finding that out. It just that seemed a bit unrealistic. Of everything else in the book, that was the one.
I didn't have a problem with it because I don't know what I would do in that situation, and I wouldn't want to put judgment on people who are trying.
That's where I was going to come with it. They're literally trying to rekindle this relationship, and maybe that's the thing to do. You know,
Or
who knows?
Maybe.
he's deciding I'm really angry right now and I'm not going to make these decisions that will affect my family and my life forever in anger. So I'm going to be cordial and I'm going to be level-headed and I'm going to think these things
I'm
through.
cordially going to fuck her tonight.
Yeah, well, no, like
Here
Like,
I
let's
come.
see how this goes. Can I still do this? Is this
Yeah,
still
like-
something that, I mean,
Fair.
well,
But
it's
I just
also
feel
like
2 days
staking your
later is-
claim. Don't you like?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's like get really.
you're fine.
You know, like, oh, you peed on my tree. I'm gonna pee on it again. That's
That-
my tree.
That was
Like-
that
Peeing in my bed, I'm going to
was
pee in
said
his.
in the
Yes,
book.
I've actually said that. I've said that before.
Oh, man.
But no, those are fair points. I just the 2 days later part is the one that kind of got me. Just
Well, he was
I
leaving.
don't know.
He told
Yeah,
her no
fair.
the first night, right when he said she asked, and he said no that same night that he
Yeah.
found
Fair.
out.
And yeah, and he was leaving for what, 14 days, 16 days. So that okay.
All right.
I'll back off.
All right, so my last question to ponder, like in The Shining, this book gave us a relatively low body count, which is, I mean, hit or miss now with Stephen King at this point. Is there anyone that you think should have been saved or anyone you wish Cujo had gotten?
Steve.
Steve. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
As in like Steve like Earl gotta die, Steve's gotta go.
Yeah, no, he's a pretty easy write him off because he's such a piece of shit.
We got a cheers from Abby.
I had a wine delivery brought up. Thank you.
Lucky.
Yeah, saved wise, I'm okay with everyone that died. I mean, is it tragic? Is it sad that Tad died? Sure, but does it add to that heart wrench of the story? Yes, and so it's needed. You know, if Donna had died and and Tad had lived, and nobody would have really thought about it, you know, too much. But you kill the 4-year-old, you're going to get some views. So I can appreciate that mindset.
Especially when the mom has to live with it now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyone else?
What is the? Sorry, Glenn. Go
No,
ahead.
no,
I
you go
cannot
ahead.
do this to you again.
Nope.
All right, fine. I'll go
So
ahead.
It's only you guys have practiced this for 100 episodes of being drunk.
You almost made me spit out whiskey.
Go, Glenn.
So did we
Go,
ever
Glenn.
get any
Go, Glenn.
clarification if the car had been saved? Did they repair the car? Or is it
I think it was a little open-ended. Use your
They take it to
imagination.
the car
They
salver.
just needed a spring. Grab a pen. God, how helpless are we?
Here's
just
my
kidding.
thing, though. I would not want to set foot back in that car. If I
no.
could repair it, I'd sell it.
Right. Like this
I'd
piece
burn
of
it.
shit.
Blood
That'd be
diamonds, blood pintos.
Blood
you know.
I think we actually, you know what? I think Cujo did officially kill that car. He dented that door up pretty bad, and
That's true.
That's
Yeah.
unsolvable. That one's almost unsolvable. So we can add that to body count.
We've
I
seen
want to
it.
add the
Body
Cujo to
work
just
count.
It's
body count.
appreciated
4.5.
so much. We got to
I
write
think
it off.
Cujo should
There goes the
definitely
Kelly
be
Blue Book value.
insurance commercial. He should be a Mayhem. Or
That would be
No,
great.
That would be a state farm. That would be a state farm.
Farm. You need to do
We've-
Cujo.
We'd cover it because we've seen it. You know?
Farmers. That's farmers.
Oh, that's
We
farmers,
are.
that's right.
as speaking about admin, I think insurance ads are the most ingenious ad people in the entire world. How can you take something like insurance and make it so wonderful to watch?
Because they have so much money.
That's fine, but good job on them.
They have so much money for people paying them every single month for
Because
doing
they have to.
nothing.
Oh,
The do
Yeah.
nothing.
Luke,
option.
They're
remember
literally
that-
they're
It's
literally
the do
banking
nothing
on the do
option.
nothing option. They hope you do nothing, and they make money off your
Oh.
ass. That's how
I
they
can't.
get so rich.
How are you giving this advice? You're the same guy that we're like, look, Abby, your insurance company.
Ah, we
Cuts
lost
off
her.
your internet.
Oh no! See, if she had internet insurance,
You know what? Don't give anybody any ideas, Luke. All right, we're
Abby,
gonna
to
move
think
on.
you're back.
I'm cutting you all
I
off.
have a question
Oh.
specifically about your question. The neighbor who, wow, this
Gary.
is like, no, it's a lady
That Vic called.
Charity.
that they
Oh.
called, and she's like, yeah, he
Oh,
was down here.
Yeah,
Why you gotta lie? You could have
she's an
gone.
idiot.
she wasn't lying. She was really, really slow.
I didn't take it that way.
Oh no, they called her out. They were like,
Well, I do remember them saying, like, she's really slow. I don't know if I can believe her, but
Mhm.
okay,
because he
yeah, I
called
guess.
back the next day and talked to the husband. He was like, "I'll go," but then he had like a giant thing.
the
of
chicken
emergency-
thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
all his
like,
chicken
by the
died.
time he remembered, everything was over because that was Wednesday morning.
Gotcha. Okay. I was under the impression, it was like the polite, she's a little slow or whatever. Not
No.
I
She
took
was
it-
dumb.
so she was not a reliable source of information.
Yes.
Okay. Never
Yeah.
mind then. She can live. You have been crossed off my you should have died list. I don't even know if you died because I don't know who any of these people are.
She didn't. Well, I mean, I would assume
Yeah.
eventually, but in the
Yeah.
book, not so much.
In the book.
All right. All right, we're gonna go to my favorite thing. Luke, I'm gonna start with you. What was your favorite thing?
I think my favorite thing, we actually haven't talked about this character at all.
Okay.
Brett, the young
Yay.
kid who basically is the young child owner of Cujo.
Yes.
I thought another young male character, written really well, loves his dad, even though his dad's a douche, right? I mean, and I just love that struggle of his mom seeing the influence that his dad has on Brett, and like that struggle of trying to bring him back to being reasonable. He's definitely polite and perceives things incredibly well, and
Smart.
he's bright, and I just thought he was another really solid character, and I really am curious as to like his story moving forward, like coming back, and his dog went on a rampage, a small rampage as we've discussed, but I just think he was one of the more interesting characters that we got to know a
Doesn't
little
he
bit.
get like a new dog
He does.
to replace?
His name is Willie.
Oh, that's right.
name.
Yeah.
Yes, at the very end.
So
Yeah.
Brett was
All
my
right.
favorite thing.
All right, Benj.
So my favorite thing kind of goes along the lines with Luke's there. I did love Cujo. I love the good boy turned to the dark side. But my favorite thing is actually the Charity and Brett story. I couldn't remember his name either. I was blanking on it. But to the fact of, you meet her and she seems like the sweet, kind of strict, but sweet older woman married to, a complete asshole. And she's just putting up with it. And finally just the car's in line and she can get away. She doesn't even know she's coming back. She's thinking about it on the fence, but in her situation, it's understandable because it's openly said that he beats her and has smacked her around, from time to time. And it's just like everything she had to do just to get that one little trip, just to get that one little respite. And she actually got it. And as much as it sucks for everybody else in the story that they weren't home for that one time, it was a light moment in her life and in Brett's life to actually get away and, actually enjoy their life.
And it kind of worked out for her.
Yeah.
Can I
Yeah.
hide
Yeah,
behind
got the
my
insurance
word and say,
policy.
like, I mean, You don't wish ill on anyone, but she's not sad that it happened. At least not sad that like her husband won't be there.
Yeah.
He gone.
Yeah. All right. So with that, Abby, what was your favorite part?
I think this is a morbid, terrible thing to say. I think it's the irony, or I find it interesting that a human dies in a hot car due to a dog.
Nice. I like that take. Actually, I hadn't thought about that, but I like that take. Yeah.
That was brought up in there, wasn't it? Because
Yes, it was.
even Donna's like, this is fucked.
It kind of like crushes me to say that though, because of all like the child deaths in hot cars. And I think that's why I hate that it was Tad. I wish it would have been Donna. That's terrible to say too. But like irresponsible, it's not always irresponsible people with the kids. It's just these unfortunate situations that adults are supposed to be in charge of that we've just like role reversal. It's weird.
Mm-hmm. All right. Glenn, favorite thing?
I kind of like in general, I like stories like with the whole Catch-22 type thing going on. And this is kind of one of those. I just like, because it seems like it's more realistic than just like, oh, well, we got this or this. Well, we're going to die if we do this, but we'll save the day if we do that. But I don't really like that, but the Catch-22 is kind of where that's where I want to be.
That you want to live that way? Or
Yes.
Right where
always want to be in a shitty spot.
Always between a rock and a hard place.
Sweet spot.
Oh.
That's
All
where
right.
I'll be.
I'll be there. But you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Look for Glenn.
I'm on a rock.
I was going totally different places with that song, but that's cool.
Okay. My favorite thing was the fact that we finally got to go to Castle Rock, home of Stephen King. I know we've been to a lot of places in and around Maine, and this is not even his first Castle Rock book. That was, at least I know Dead Zone is there, but I think this was a good introduction to Castle Rock. We'll be coming back, so, keep Castle Rock in the back of your mind, but when people think of Stephen King and Stephen King settings, this is the epitome of where
This is it?
places his.
Yeah.
Yeah, Castle Rock.
There's a reason there's a Hulu show called Castle Rock, based entirely on Stephen King folklore.
She didn't know that either.
Never seen it. Or
No, I
heard
get.
it.
I'm just name dropping on that one.
I'm
Is it good?
glad we made it.
Very good.
All right, Ben and Luke. Now is the time for us to decide out of the 5 books we've read so far. I'm going to go through the current rankings. Currently, we have It still as our number 1, The Shining as number 2, Salem's Lot as number 3, and Carrie as number 4. So we are going to, out of 1 through 5, where would you place this one in the rankings of the books?
Okay.
Everybody, don't hit enter. Give me a thumb when you've got yours at least typed. Benji's in. Luke, you're in. Ready? Okay, hit enter. Go. All right, so I put it as book 4. Luke put it as book number 2. Benji put it as book number 5. That gives us an official ranking. This is now the new number 3.
Yep.
Okay.
So it falls under It and The Shining. It is now above Salem's Lot and Carrie.
This is so much better than Salem's Lot.
So much worse than Carrie. So much worse than Carrie.
It is not worse than Carrie.
I have
Yeah.
nothing to say about
Not-
this. Just
Not
yet.
worse than Carrie at all. Okay, so I'm going to put that in here. Cujo, 1981. All right, then here we go. Final thoughts. And we're going to go in reverse order. So we're going to start with Glenn. What was your final thought on this book?
I don't really have anything major to add. It's an alright story, I guess.
Would you call it run of the mill?
It's kind of one of your run-of-the-mill titles out there that you read.
Sorry, had to.
Oh, Glenn, I've missed you. All right, Abby.
So I'm nervous putting out like big opinions about books about Stephen King because I've now officially read 5 of them. Good for me.
I feel like in 3 months you're not allowed to use the "I'm new here" excuse.
That's fine, but I feel like having like these big like, wow, this was terrible, or I disagree, or what are we all liking about this book is really makes me nervous because there's this whole community of, I don't know what you fans call yourselves of Stephen King, but
King Long.
obviously,
Kings.
what?
There's no need. Just keep going.
Kings.
So, like, it could be an ignorant opinion, and that's completely fine. But my opinion about this book is, I feel like we're getting the same story or the same idea. We're just kind of changing some characters or some circumstances, but the overall quote unquote moral of the story is very similar. Cujo, he's a canine. Jack Torrance, husband, father. Carrie, adolescent female. All the same idea. They're fighting their nature to be a good or better husband, dog, teenager, man, whatever have you. And then some external force comes in, shows up, and ruins everything for everyone. And then there's also dependents, children, people rely on people who are entrusted to undependable and unreliable adults. And I feel like, other than Salem's Lot, that's how these 3 books for me have felt. Carrie, The Shining, and Cujo. And I don't necessarily know if I dislike Cujo or if I would have read this first, would I've gotten to this point reading The Shining later on. I just feel like I'm revisiting the same thing again in a different town, now with a dog instead of a girl. That's my final thought.
Fair. Completely fair. Actually, very well said. I mean, what?
I'm just looking for responses.
No, I mean, that's to me, that's very well said. I hadn't put those together, but you're not incorrect. I would argue, because my argument for The Shining of Jack Torrance having the external force, he was already an asshole. He was already had mental issues, and the isolation alone, regardless of whatever, would have sent him over the edge.
But we don't know that.
I get
and Luke and I disagreed real hard on that. We were victim all the way.
Fair. I'm making that statement, but I see where you're coming from, and I like that thought process. And you're not incorrect with from what we've read besides it and Salem's Lot, it fits the mold.
We're at 60% right now of a trying to do good character gets twisted by fate.
Yes.
Yep.
Wreaks havoc on others. Okay, Benj, final thought.
So my final thought: this is not a horror story; it's a tragedy. Just all in all, and I'm not talking about Tad. It's this line right here. Shortly following those mortal events in the Camber Dooryard, Cujo's remains were cremated. The ashes went out with the trash and were disposed of at the Augusta Waste Treatment Plant. It would perhaps not be amiss to point out that he had always tried to be a good dog. He had tried to do all the things his man and his woman, and most of all his boy, had asked or expected of him. He would have died for them if that had been required. He had never wanted to kill anybody. He had been struck by something, possibly destiny or fate, or only a degenerative nerve disease called rabies. Free will was not a factor. And that line stands out to me. And again, that's what my most compelling character is, Cujo, because he couldn't help it. Everybody else had, besides Tad. Tad's the only one that didn't have another option. Mm-hmm. Everybody else had another option, but except Cujo. So,
okay. Luke, final thought.
Yeah, I really like what you brought up there, Benji. I agree that it's a tragedy in Cujo's perspective, but it is absolutely a horror-filled scenario for Donna and Tad, right? I mean, that's a terrifying situation that they find themselves in, and even though she ends up doing not as much as Abby would wish, she thinks about doing things, she tries to do things, and things are consistently stacked up against her. I'm not just bashing on you, Abby. I view it slightly differently. I mean, she actively is doing her best, and she knows that she is way outmatched. She gives Tad zero chance if she goes out there and gets killed instantly. No chance for Tad. As opposed to doing what she can, because he's a 4-year-old. The kid can't take care of himself for an afternoon. Like, that's not going to happen in the car. She can at least try to motivate him to stay alive. I know that sounds so silly, but like that's all she can do at that point. And she's hallucinating, and it's a horrific experience to read about. And every time, she screams out at the dog, and just hearing Tad's, voice in the back, all of us, most of us here have small children. We can kind of relate to, man, that just tears you up, knowing that you're in a helpless situation, that there is nothing you can possibly do. And that's, I think, my final thought on it.
All right. My final thought is I just like the thriller aspect of it. I have to know, I like when a book can suck me in, and I may not necessarily be, it's going to sound weird, I may not be enjoying it, because listening to Cujo was very difficult, because I was so worried and so anxious, and it was an uncomfortable way of being entertained. But I had to know the ending, and I like when I get sucked into a book so much that I need to know the outcome. I don't plan on revisiting the book personally, just because I know the ending, and so that emotion can never be replicated for me. but I find it interesting that I had such a visceral reaction to the act of listening to it for the first time, and then the post-traumatic stress, if you will, and I'm using that term very loosely, lightly, but the post-after book like hangover of trying to get back to my world. And I like when a book can do that. So I'm good with the solid 3 in our ranking. I'm okay with that. All right. And I think that's it, guys.
All right. So make sure you join us or message us or follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Floats Down Here. Send us a digital red balloon at floatsdownhere@gmail.com with any of your questions or thoughts or anything. We love hearing from you guys and gals. Gives us stuff to read and, gives us more content to put out for you. You can find all of our shows at thepodcastthat.com, all of our stuff. Make sure you subscribe, rate on iTunes and on YouTube.
This show and all of our shows at the podcast.com are produced with the love and support of our wonderful Imaginary Legion patrons. You can learn more about our reward tiers and everything we have going on there at patreon.com/stayimaginary.
Join us next time as we hit Pet Cemetery, which is a classic about evil that exists far beyond the grave.
You'll float too.
Stay imaginary.
Thanks.